Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at Husqvarna 455 chainsaw. The customer complaint is that it runs, but it doesn't run very well. Let's take a look in the fuel tank and see what there is to see. If you follow these videos, you'll know that this is usually the first thing I do. A lot of running issues can be sorted out by this one simple step. If there's water in the bottom of the tank, it's not going to run right. If you pressurize the fuel line like this with 10 pounds of pressure and it bleeds off, then there's either a hole in the fuel line or there's something going on in the carburetor. So that, 1 minute I spent there can tell a whole lot. We dump this fuel out into this funnel and we take a closer look at the quality of the fuel. Is there a lot of debris that came out with it? Is there water in the bottom of the funnel? Because water will settle to the bottom of the fuel. And if it looks good, then I just put it on the side and save it. So the next thing I want to do is look under the hood and see what we got going on here. I always try to look into the cylinder before I do any major repair. That's a good looking air filter right there. Because if the thing's scored, now you're talking about a lot of money to fix this thing. And that's going to require a phone call. So we're going to take this flashlight and we're going to look into the cylinder. On this style saw, you can pretty easily see what you need to see. And if it's clean and shiny, and there's, usually you're going to see it above the exhaust port if it's scored. But if it's clean and shiny, then we keep moving forward. We could have checked the compression here. We could have checked for spark, although the guy said it runs, so I know I got spark. There's potentially some ignition coil problems that could make it run bad. And maybe would be identified by a test run. But, this guy in this picture here that's doing the work, that's me. And I'm at work, on the payroll, being paid to fix chainsaws. I'm not being paid to make YouTube videos. So as far as this being a step-by-step tutorial, well, you don't always get that. You get whatever I was thinking at the time based on the information I was given. I'm pressure testing that fuel line again. This time with the line removed from the carburetor and plugged. And now I'm just testing the line. Because before, if you looked really close, it was bleeding off when I tested it. So now I've determined that the fuel line does not have a hole in it, but the carburetor has some type of leak. It could be just a gasket leak, or it could be the needle bleeding off. I don't know, but it's supposed to be tight and it's not, so we're pulling the carburetor off. So getting back to the videos, like I said, I'm not making YouTube videos, but I am allowed to capture footage while I'm doing repairs. And then after the fact, I put together the best video I can with the footage that I got. And because I'm at work, the phone might ring, or I might have to go up front and sell a chainsaw, or just get interrupted in general. If somebody needs an LP tank filled, I might have to run outside. If they need some bark mulch, I might have to run outside and load them. If they're dropping off or picking something up, I might have to run and do that. Sometimes when I come back after those errands, I forget to start the camera. So I just have to piece together what I have. A lot of stuff never makes it to YouTube because I don't have enough good footage to piece together. So you can see we struggled a little bit pulling the air filter holder off of there. And now we're removing one of the fuel lines. And after having removed the carburetor linkage, we've harvested a carburetor. So I blew the schmutz off of it. Now we're going to put it on this handy dandy carb stand here. If you want one of these carb stands, check out the description of the video. There's a link in there to buy one of these. Help support the channel. So we have removed the pump cover and we just looked at the micro screen and it looks okay. There's no debris in there. Maybe there was a little bit of scum, but it was probably okay. You know, sometimes you find all kinds of weird stuff in that micro screen. Could be evidence from water, there could be rust, there could be scum, there could be wood debris, it could be black residue from the inside of a rubber fuel line. So we always like to look in there. If there's anything in there at all, it's limiting the amount of fuel that's getting into the engine, and the engine might not run right. So this piece here that I'm peeling off is called a metering diaphragm. And it was really stiff. Not supposed to be stiff, it's supposed to be flexible. That metering diaphragm needs to react, easily move and push on the metering lever to allow fuel in or out of the metering chamber. When they're stiff like that, you end up with either too much fuel or not enough fuel and the saw won't run right, which just happens to coincide with the customer's complaint. So we're going to get a kit for this one, and the D10 kit is just a diaphragm, gasket and diaphragm kit. We're not putting any hard parts in here except for a new screen. Screen didn't come with the kit. I got a lot of extra screens just for a situation like this where I don't want to spend the customer's money on a whole kit when I don't think it needs it. So we just give them a screen. I could have cleaned the old one. Whatever. Do it any way you want. It's a metal screen, so you can clean it out and reuse it. So we put the blue acetate fuel pump in there because it was the only one that came with the kit. And on this side, we're going to put a new metering diaphragm on it. Gasket goes down first, then the diaphragm, and then the cover. You'll notice that there's a little hole in the cover. It's just a vent so that metering diaphragm can move back and forth in there. But because it's a vent, you know, it could let dirt in too. So if you pull that cover off and you see a bunch of dirt behind there, you know, that's not the reason why it's not running right, unless it's just packed full. So we got our kit in there. What are we doing now? Oh yeah, remember it bled off before we had the kit in there. Now we got new gaskets. Still have the original needle in there, I'd like to point out. Let's put 10 pounds of pressure on here and see if it holds now. Looks like it's holding. So, we must have had a bad gasket. And a decision to just put the gasket and diaphragm kit in there, not the whole hardware kit with the new needle. Looks like it may have been the right one. So we get oriented here a little bit, get this thing bolted back in. First thing we want to do is connect that clutch lever. It just snaps into place. The blue lever snaps onto the carburetor. Then we'll kind of get things lined up here. And Look at this guy. He doesn't even know what tool he wants to use here. We're grabbing this fuel line. And we're pulling it back a little bit. We had pulled it out when I put the plug in the end of that line to test it. So I had too much hanging out there. Now we can push that line on the carburetor and kind of adjust the length of it. Get the carb lined up. It's a little bit of a fumbly job, but not bad. While I can, I'm going to access this fuel hose and push it on the back of the primer bulb. That one is sucking fuel through the carburetor into the primer. And the top line on that primer bulb is a return back to tank. Looks like I got things kind of lined up. We'll get some screws going in here. Ultimately, these screws turn into plastic. You see I got my driver set on number 3. You got to know your driver, I guess. I use this thing every day. But you don't want to crank things in there so tight you're going to strip the plastic. I use the driver more for speeding up the process, and then usually the final torque is just me twisting the driver, because this one will kind of lock when it's not engaged. So you can see I'll spin it in, and then I'll twist it a little bit to the final torque. So we got our carb bolted in, got our fuel lines on. We got to put our throttle linkage on yet. There's a little rubber piece that's kind of a wall that keeps the dirt out of the carb chamber of the saw. We push the plastic end of the linkage into the trigger handle. Push that rubber wall down into the slots for it. Thing's really flexible. Kind of hard to get it in there decent. And then we hang the linkage on the carburetor, and that blue lever just snaps down into place to hold the linkage there. Kind of be careful with that blue piece. There's a little nub on it that keeps it locked in there. And if you really kind of crank on it, you could wear that nub down a little bit, and then that blue piece won't hold where it belongs. You can see I was just double checking the screws. Probably because I forgot I had tightened them already, or I got walked away for a minute. Who knows? This air filter looked really good. There's a couple rubber saddles. I'm locking the carburetor into place. So we'll snap this air filter on there. So we had talked about interruptions and such. After I try to start this thing up, it won't run very long and the video is going to end. Because I got pulled away, and then when I came back, I forgot to record more footage of it running or adjusting the carb. But just know that the saw ran fine and the customer got it back happy. So that's all I'm going to have for you in Husqvarna 455 chainsaw that needed a carb kit. Thanks for watching. Later.